Hi, everybody. Mitch Tanenbaum here. Thanks for joining me today. This is the security news update for February 26th, 2023, the last video update for February. Um, in the security alerts department, uh, Twitter has announced that they are no longer going to support multi-factor authentication using text messages on free accounts. Let's unpack that. This is kind of a complicated thing. So there are three ways that you can implement security, extra security in Twitter. One is text messages. The second is a multi-factor authentication app like Authy or Facebook Authenticator. And the third one is with a hardware token. Um, Twitter, in their defense, I think, is saying text messages cost us money and we think it's the worst kind of multi-factor there is. So if you want that, you're going to have to pay for it. So you have to have a paid subscription starting next month if you want to use multi-factor authentication. If you specifically, if you want to use multi-factor authentication with text messages. Um, in the meantime, if you want to, you can migrate from using text messages to one of the other two factors of multi-factor authentication that they will support for free before next month. If you don't do that, they're just going to turn it off, which is sort of kind of scary. But that's what they're doing. They're trying to go off and cut down on costs. I have no clue what it costs them for the text messaging service, but they're a million here, a million there. After a while, it adds up. Um, and if they say that only 2.5% of their population uses multi-factor authentication, and if you have a corporate account, as the Pentagon learned the hard way last year, and you're not using multi-factor authentication, then you really need to turn it on. And I understand there's this potential issue of what happens if you have multiple people who want to use the same account, blah, blah, blah. And there's ways around that that will handle that. Um, the reason is because, like I said, the Pentagon learned the hard way. Bad guys will break into your account. They'll post, um, all kinds of things. Who knows what? They could post porn. They could post seditious conspiracy stuff, and then what they'll do is they'll change your password, so you can't get into the account to get rid of the stuff that's affecting your brand. Multi-factor authentication definitely helps with that. And if you're not using multi-factor authentication on your Twitter account, corporate Twitter account, you really need to turn that on. Um, in the reference department, the California Department of Financial Protection and Innovation, boy, that's a mouthful. That's the agency that came out of the California Privacy Rights Act, has launched a crypto scam tracker. So it's kind of interesting. You could call it a cookbook for hackers, except the hackers already know all the scams out there. So you're really not telling them anything they don't know. But what you are doing is telling people who don't know whether something is a scam or not. So you can search as a searchable database and it's free. That's kind of cool. And so you might want to check that out. Um, Samsung in the software department, and there's really nothing to do right now except that it does require a Galaxy S23 today. But what they're doing is they're putting in something they're calling Samsung Message Guard. And what it does is it inspects all the images that come to your phone, and they check them out in a sandbox to make sure that they won't detonate and affect your computer or phone before letting you open it. The reason why they're doing this is that the NSO group, the guys that invented Pegasus, were using these kind of attack vectors, and they want to make sure that they're making it harder for these guys to do that. As I said, right now it's only the S23s, but what they said is later this year they will roll it out to the rest of the Galaxy line. So if you're a Galaxy user, there's nothing to do, which is nice. You don't have to turn it on. You don't have to do anything. It just will happen when it's ready for your model of Galaxy, and it's transparent to use. So I mean, you can't get easier than that. Next, in the education department, if you are in or around the mortgage space or you're interested in that space, um, housing giant CoreLogic, multi-billion-dollar company, just bought mortgage fintech Roostify. Now, some would say this was likely a fire sale or a Hail Mary for Roostify. Um, and the good news is that all these guys are trying to find the magic unicorn for doing a digital mortgage. Nobody's found it yet. Doing a loan application is easy. That's not a problem. But the problem is getting all this other data that's necessary for you to actually get a mortgage approved and get it closed and get it all in the right place at the right time, visible to the right people, not visible to the wrong people. That turns out to be a lot harder than people would say. So Roostify is working on it. The thing is, they'd raised about 50 million bucks, which sounds like a lot of money, but it's a hard problem. So I'm hoping that CoreLogic will choose to invest a lot of money in this. They have a lot of money, so they can afford to do that. Plus, they have a lot of data, which is really, really important. So they can feed their data into Roostify's system without Roostify having to pay for it, which gives them a huge competitive advantage. There's also a possibility that they might buy a loan origination system. If they do that, they have kind of end-to-end integration, and that really gives them a significant competitive advantage. So we'll see what they do. But if you're interested in this space, it's a great read. Um, in the breaches department, the embarrassing breach this week is the New York FBI office network was hacked. Apparently, and the FBI is not saying much about it, but apparently this was somehow involved in the computers that were used to investigate child porn or child sexual abuse material. Um, so hopefully they've contained it. They're not saying much. They probably will later, but right now they're not saying anything. Next, GoDaddy is finally admitting that hackers were roaming around inside their network for 3 years. I've never been much of a fan of GoDaddy for any number of reasons, but this to me is kind of the straw that broke the camel's back. It took them 3 years to figure out that the bad guys were in their network, stealing their stuff, and by the way, infecting their customers' websites and web servers. Everybody does what they think is the best for their company, but my suggestion might be to go look for a different provider right now. Um, there's a new class of bugs in town, which will spell some trouble for Apple. Apple will attempt to contain it, and they'll probably do a decent job. But the question is, if this is a whole new class of bugs, are they playing a bit of a whack-a-mole game? And I think they probably are. So we shall see. These bugs again came from our friends at the NSO Group, makers of Pegasus spyware, and things that they were abusing in the system that Apple thought they had patched, and it turns out the patching it was probably a lot harder than they had expected, and they didn't really do a foolproof job of patching it. Next, speaking of patching, Google, which this is good news for Android users, is working to improve the Android hardware ecosystem security. So as Apple and Microsoft and Google and all these guys improve their software security, the hackers are trying to figure out, well, how else can we attack? And what they've discovered is all these little processors that live under the cover of your phone or your computer, those are vulnerable, and they all have software in them, and the software is all buggy. And I've written about a number of them over the years. So from that perspective, it's good that they're working with their hardware partners to go off and get them to use a more secure software development lifecycle process, which is a great thing for sure. And hopefully this will mean a more secure world, and not just for the Android world, but for everybody who uses these support processors. Um, and in the security news bites for the week, the European governments, in the name of it's all about the children, that's always the game. They want to eliminate end-to-end encryption. What they really say is, well, you don't have to eliminate end-to-end encryption. You just have to be able to do all these things. And there's really kind of two possible ways to do that, which is they can put snooper software on your device, which people really be thrilled about, or they can break end-to-end encryption, and it's kind of a conundrum for them as to which one they do. Personally, I'm not terribly thrilled with having the vendor have even more access to the data on my device than they already do. So we shall see what they do, and this is not a done deal yet, but the Europeans seem to be pretty adamant about it. Next, the CIA is saying that Russia is working to try to close down U.S. intel. Remember, it's the U.S. intel which is giving the Ukrainians the coordinates of where to send their bombs and missiles. So that's not good for the Russians. Luckily for the Ukrainians and the rest of the world that's supporting them, the Russians don't seem to be doing very well at it. So that is to say, shutting it down. Um, Next, Facebook is penalizing kind of along the lines of Twitter. They're seeing their revenue shrink. They said that their revenue was going to be down by, gee, we should be very sad for Facebook. Their revenue is going to be down by $10 billion this year or more due to Apple actually forcing them to tell the truth that you are the product and we are collecting your data. And surely you want to do this. And apparently 90% of Apple users said, I don't think so. So they're losing a bunch of money. So they're looking for other revenue streams. So they're going to have a paid model also, like Twitter does. Also colored blue. Don't ask me what's magical about the color blue. It must be some psychological thing there. I think they're going to charge as much as $15 a month for their magic blue check mark. And if you don't do that, then you're going to get even worse support and higher risk of things that you won't even be able to do without paying for it. So, I think that the good news is that probably any number of people will discover that, well, maybe social media really isn't that important to me if this is what you're going to make me do. So, that may work out okay. Next, Common Spirit Health, which is one of the big mega hospital chains, says that their ransomware attack late last year has already cost them $150 million. And that doesn't count the lawsuits which are pending, which will be years away, and all the legal fees and all that stuff that they wind up having to pay. So, moral of the story is try to avoid getting hacked because it's a whole lot cheaper than cleaning up the damage later. And if you guys are listening to this and saying, gee, I am not so sure about our security. The hardware and software vendors we know are keeping up, but not everybody has the newest model hardware, or for that matter, the newest model software. And then you have to worry about whether your users are doing the right thing or not. So, if you're kind of staying up at night, feel free to give us a call. We'll see if we can help you sleep better. Until next time, thanks for listening.
Turnkey Cybersecurity and Privacy Solutions offers the complete cybersecurity program for small to medium-sized businesses. They include everything needed to secure your business and meet compliance requirements. Visit our website at turnkeycybersecurityandprivacysolutions.com to learn more.